there's a lot more time that should be yielded for this debate, and it should have been yielded within the original agreement that came from the Rules Committee. This appropriations bill didn't come to this floor under an open rule, has been the deep and long-standing tradition of the House of Representatives. It came to the floor under a structured open rule, and under the request that said, print your amendments into the record, and then there will be 5 minutes debate on each side, and we'll go down through all of those. Now, anybody would have known that all the amendments that were printed into the record would not have been offered. But I'll submit this, and it hasn't been said here, I don't believe, Mr. Chairman, is that these amendments that were printed into the record laid out the entire amendment strategy of the minority party. And then the majority party then took their leisure to thumb down through the amendments and decided that they didn't want to have debate on a good number of them, which brings us to this point. And when the chairman of the Appropriations Committee earlier mentioned some 20 times that this Congress has deviated from an open rule on appropriations, it was unclear to me whether the chairman actually included unanimous consent agreements, which have been a fairly consistent component of the open rule process. Not a structured rule, not something that was rigid and devised from the beginning, at least not something that was unnegotiated, as this was, but a unanimous consent agreement that allows any member to object. That isn't the case that we're dealing with here. And so some will say that that I'm trying to track the logic of what amendments were approved and which ones weren't approved. And I will tell you, there is no logic in this minority party except in the idea that we have to go up in that little room up there in the Rules Committee and sit down for 3 hours and wait for an opportunity to ask that stacked Rules Committee for an opportunity just to offer an amendment here on the floor of the House of Representatives. There's no way you can go home and say to your constituents, I'd have liked to have done a good job representing you, but I didn't have an opportunity even to offer an amendment, let alone perfect something and get a legitimate debate or a vote. So I analyzed these 124 remaining amendments after this fiasco last night that lasted into this morning, and came with some of these statistical data that's interesting, I think, to this Congress. Out of these 124 amendments, 20 of 23 were about money, approved by the Rules Committee. So that would tell me that Democrats don't mind voting for more spending. That's a clear conclusion that one can draw because of the 94 amendments that were rejected by the Rules Committee, none of them can be characterized as spending amendments exclusively. They're policy amendments. And in that includes amendments that would have blocked federal funding for ACORN, an organization that has all the appearances of a criminal enterprise, that has admitted to producing over 400,000 fraudulent voter registrations, that have been involved in intimidating lenders, and now seem to be under the employment of the White House for the United States Census. And we can't get a debate on this and can't get a vote on an amendment like that. And we can't have a discussion in this Congress about the intelligence impasse that has been created because of the allegations against the CIA made by the Speaker of the House. And we're supposed to operate a government with these huge policy issues that hang in front of us and do a specious debate on spending, which everything that's offered by the minority party that reduces the spending is going to be voted down by the majority party because what? They said, let's have a debate on that. They're eager to vote for more spending. And this bill, which increases funding under these titles from last year by $12 billion, an expansive growth of government, and now what's shutting down the debate here in the House of Representatives, if we move on from this appropriations process without a rule that allows for debate, and we're going to accept the argument that comes from the chairman of the Appropriations Committee that this has happened before, I can guarantee you, Mr. Chairman, this is going to happen again and again and again, and no member can ask again. If they don't stand up and defend themselves now, it'll be less reason the next time and less reason the next time, and we're settled into a mode where the committee that would rule would be the one, I think, which is directed from above, with no cameras in the room, seldom even a reporter in the room, but members of Congress sitting there in little chairs waiting for their chance to say, oh, please, could I just offer my amendment here on the floor of the House of Representatives? You can't run a government that way. It's not consistent with our constitutional republic. It would cause indigestion in all of our founding fathers to see what's going on in here in this Congress today. And it's got to stop, and we've got to get back to a regular order that allows for open rules and legitimate debate And we can face this debate, win or lose. Let's do it the right way, Mr. Chairman. I thank the gentleman for Virginia, and I yield back.